Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever walked into a room and felt the atmosphere shift just because someone with powerful energy walked in? Resilience doesn't come from ease. It's born in the moments when everything feels like it's about to break, and you don't. It's not something you're handed. It's not a gift. It's a choice, a decision to show up again and again, no matter how heavy the weight gets or how loud the doubt becomes. Real resilience is forged in silence, in those internal battles no one sees, but everyone eventually feels in your presence. It's easy to stand strong when life is in your favor, when people clap for you, when the path is lit. But the real test, it's who you are when the noise disappears, when you're walking into uncertainty, and no one is watching but you. Imagine stepping into a room where you know you're being judged before you speak, where the air is thick with assumptions and your value is questioned without a word. Some people would shrink in moments like that. But the resilient ones, they don't collapse, they expand, not with arrogance, but with certainty, because they've been through too much to let someone else's opinion rewrite their truth. You don't wake up one day and become unshakable. That kind of strength comes from breaking 1,000 times and refusing to stay broken, from failure, from rejection, from loss, from fear, and still choosing to move forward. Resilience is built in the repetition of getting up. Every time you've been underestimated, overlooked, dismissed, it either broke you down or built you, but when you use it right, it doesn't just build you, it elevates you. You see, resilience isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. It's gritty. It's personal. It's that moment you walk out the door with a storm still raging in your chest and still choose to lead, to show up, to give your best. It's when you learn how to sit with discomfort long enough to grow through it. You stop avoiding it. You stop fearing it, because challenge becomes familiar, and instead of asking, why me, you start thinking, try me. There's a certain type of person who refuses to let challenge define them. They don't wait for permission to rise. They don't beg for validation. They carve their way through walls when doors won't open, and it's not about aggression. It's not about fighting the world. It's about mastering themselves. About knowing that control isn't always external, it's internal. Resilience teaches you that while you may not choose your battles, you always choose your posture, your stance, your focus, your fire. And when life hits hard, and it will, resilience is what separates those who react from those who respond. Anyone can panic, anyone can fall apart, but to remain steady in the face of chaos, to breathe, to think, to act from grounded clarity, that's a learned strength. That's earned, not inherited, not bought, and certainly not faked, because real resilience isn't pretending everything's fine. It's knowing that even when things aren't fine, you still are, and let's not sugarcoat it. It's exhausting. Carrying yourself through storms that no one knows you're navigating, smiling when your heart is heavy, working when your body is tired, protecting your peace like it's your last asset. But in those moments, you realize something powerful. Your energy is a luxury not everyone can afford. Why? Because it costs you everything to build it. You've paid in sleepless nights, in second chances, in silence, in inner battles no one applauds. You've made peace with pain. You've become friends with failure. You've stopped fearing the fall because you've survived enough to know you can always get back up. There are people who will never understand the weight you carry, and that's okay. You didn't grow for them. You didn't fight for their approval. You did it for you, for the version of yourself that refuses to stay stuck, for the future you that deserves more, for the part of you that whispers, keep going, even when the world tells you to quit. Resilience isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole, knowing you've been through hell and still found your light. It's the quiet confidence of someone who's been challenged deeply and still chooses to love, to lead, to believe. That's power, that's real, and that is resilience. Let me know if you'd like a version suitable for delivery in a live speech, or if you want this adapted for print or performance. The power of personal identity, delivered in a smooth, emotionally grounded tone with realism and passion, no subheadings or conclusion, as requested. There comes a moment in every person's life where they're forced to choose, blend in to survive, or stand out to live. And that decision, subtle as it may seem in the moment, shapes everything that follows. Personal identity is not just about knowing who you are. It's about refusing to abandon that truth in spaces that try to erase it. It's about looking in the mirror and saying, "This is me," even when the world whispers it shouldn't be. And that kind of power, that kind of clarity, it's dangerous. To the systems built on silence, to the people who depend on your doubt, to the rooms that only applaud if you shrink first. You don't find identity by accident, you earn it. You uncover it piece by piece, usually in places where you feel most invisible. It doesn't always come through joy. Sometimes identity is revealed in pain, in rejection, in loss, because it's in those moments that you finally realize what you won't compromise, the line you won't cross, the version of yourself you refuse to bury just to be accepted. And once you've tasted that level of honesty with yourself, you can't go back. You won't go back. It's freedom, but freedom comes with a price. Carrying your identity into the world is bold. It's bold because it's vulnerable, because people will try to define you, rewrite you, soften your edges, quiet your fire. Some will do it kindly, others won't, but it happens. They'll say, "Tone it down, be less direct, be more agreeable, don't take up too much space." And for a while, you might try to comply. You might twist yourself into versions you don't recognize just to be liked, accepted, chosen. But eventually you'll get tired of editing yourself to make other people comfortable, tired of apologizing for what makes you powerful, and that moment, when you stop hiding, is the moment you become unstoppable. Identity is not about being perfect. It's about being whole, and wholeness includes your roots, your voice, your scars, your culture, your story. The parts of you that were told they didn't belong, those are the parts the world needs. Those are the parts that disrupt, that innovate, that change the conversation, but only if you bring them forward, only if you choose not to shrink. The truth is, we live in a world that rewards assimilation. It celebrates when people follow the script, stay in their lane, play it safe. But nothing remarkable has ever come from someone who stayed small. The people we remember, the ones who leave a mark, they didn't blend in. They stood out, not because they wanted attention, but because they refused to betray themselves, because they knew peace is not found in pretending. It's found in alignment, and you cannot be aligned with your purpose if you are disconnected from your identity. You don't need to be loud to be seen. You need to be real. Real cuts through noise, real lasts, real resonates. People remember you not just for what you say, but for the way you carry yourself, your presence, your energy, your values. And values aren't performative, they are lived, they are felt. They are the invisible backbone of personal identity. When you stand on them, you don't waver with every opinion. You become grounded, and grounded people. They don't chase approval, they attract respect, but it takes courage. Because the moment you embrace your full identity, you will encounter resistance. Not everyone will understand you. Some will feel threatened by your confidence. Some will mislabel your strength as arrogance. Let them. You were not built to fit their mold. You were built to break it, to show others what it looks like to own your story with dignity, to stand in your truth without apology. And when you do that, you don't just empower yourself. You give silent permission to others. You become proof that it's possible, and that ripple effect, it's powerful. So hold on to who you are, especially when it would be easier to let go. Remember that what makes you different is often what makes you unforgettable. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to soften it. You just need to live it, fully, consistently, bravely. Because once you do, once you own your identity without fear, there is no limit to what you can build, change, or become. Let me know if you'd like the next keynote expanded, or if you'd prefer a spoken, word performance version. Uncompromising integrity, written in a professional, emotionally grounded voice without subheadings or a conclusion. Integrity isn't glamorous. It doesn't always get applause. It's not always seen. Sometimes it's inconvenient. Sometimes it costs you opportunities. But what it gives back is something that can't be bought, borrowed, or imitated. Respect. Not just from others, but from yourself. Integrity means doing the right thing when no one's watching, when no one will ever know. It's holding the line when it would be easier, safer to fold, and the moment you decide that your values are not for sale, you become a different kind of force in the world. People think strength is about volume or dominance. But real strength, it's quiet, it's disciplined, It's when you walk away from things that compromise your peace. It's when you say no, even though yes would bring comfort, profit, or attention. It's refusing to bend your principles to meet someone else's agenda. And in a world obsessed with image, where appearances often outweigh substance, integrity stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. You learn integrity not through theory, but through friction, through choices that challenge your core. It shows up when pressure hits, when shortcuts are available, when the stakes are high. That's when the question becomes real. Who are you when it costs you something to be honest? Because anyone can be ethical when it's easy. But what about when truth comes with a consequence? What about when speaking up means standing alone? That's when character is revealed, not shaped, but revealed. You can't fake it in those moments. You either have it or you don't. There's a certain type of person who refuses to play dirty, no matter how dirty the game gets. They refuse to gossip, manipulate, or pretend. They don't chase influence by sacrificing their integrity. They don't burn bridges just to get ahead. Why? Because they know that how you win matters just as much as the win itself. Success that comes at the cost of your values is failure in disguise, and even if no one else sees the compromise, you do. You feel it, you carry it, and over time it becomes a weight, one that silences your voice, clouds your confidence, and chips away at your sense of self. The most powerful people aren't the loudest. They're the ones who can sleep at night knowing they didn't cheat their way to peace. They didn't lie to gain acceptance. They didn't pretend to be something they're not just to be liked. That's not strength. That's survival. Integrity is deeper. It's about alignment. It's when your actions reflect your beliefs, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. And sometimes it does hurt. Sometimes integrity means walking away from something you wanted because you refuse to compromise how you get there. That takes maturity, that takes grit, that takes self-respect. People will try to test your limits. They'll try to blur your boundaries. They'll offer you easier ways out, quieter ways to comply. But the ones who hold their ground, the ones who look you in the eye and say, "This is what I stand for," and that doesn't change depending on who's in the room, those people command respect without asking for it. Not because they say the right things, but because they live them. Consistently, day in, day out, there's nothing more magnetic than someone who is rooted in who they are. Not perfect, not polished, rooted. You can feel it in their tone, their choices, their discipline. They aren't rattled by pressure, they aren't swayed by trends, they lead with truth and they don't weaponize it. They embody it, and when mistakes happen, and they will, these are the people who own them. They don't hide, they don't shift blame, they step forward with humility and fix what needs to be fixed. That's integrity too, not pretending to be flawless, but refusing to be fake. This world doesn't need more polished personalities. It needs people with backbone, people who can be trusted not just when it's convenient, but when it's hard. People who show up the same way behind closed doors as they do in public. Because in the end, you don't build legacy through image. You build it through decisions, quiet, firm, sometimes costly decisions that add up to a life you can be proud of. A life where you never have to second guess who you are. A life where your name means something. Not just to others, but most importantly to you. Let me know if you'd like the next keynote expanded in the same tone. Owning your energy, written with emotional intensity and professional fluency, no subheadings or conclusion as requested. Energy is one of the most powerful currencies you have, and most people give it away without realizing it. You give it to people who don't value you, to opinions that don't define you, to fears that don't deserve you. But the moment you learn to own your energy, to truly take responsibility for what you allow into your space and what you pour out into the world, everything changes. You start moving differently. You stop reacting to everything. You stop chasing validation. You stop apologizing for your boundaries because you realize your energy is not just something you use, it's something you protect. When you don't own your energy, it owns you. You wake up already exhausted, not from work, not from effort, but from being in too many places mentally that don't feed you, carrying emotions that aren't even yours, saying yes when your soul screams no. And the worst part is, Most of it is invisible. No one sees how much it drains you to always be available, to constantly manage other people's moods, to keep showing up for environments that never show up for you. But your body feels it, your spirit feels it, that tightness in your chest, that silence after conversations that leave you empty, that's your energy telling you enough. Owning your energy is an act of self-respect. It's the decision to stop living in survival mode. It's the discipline of walking away, not just from people, but from versions of yourself that no longer serve you, the one that overextends, the one that explains too much, the one that sacrifices rest for approval. There's a moment you reach where you just can't fake it anymore. You can't keep pretending that being drained is normal, that chaos is a personality trait, that burnout is the price of being strong. No, real strength is being able to say, "This is not mine to carry." Real growth is choosing peace, even when chaos is all you've known. Some people won't like it when you start guarding your energy. They'll call you distant, cold, even selfish. Let them, because people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always be uncomfortable when you start setting them. But that discomfort, it's not your responsibility. Your only job is to protect your light, your focus, your peace, because not everyone is entitled to access you. Not every conversation deserves a reply. Not every invitation needs your presence. Sometimes power is in restraint. In choosing silence over reaction, in choosing stillness over performance, you were not born to be constantly available. You were not created to absorb everything. You are not a sponge. You are a force, a presence, and the more you own your energy, the more you begin to move with intention. You stop giving explanations for things that feel right in your soul. You stop needing permission to rest, to say no, to pull back when it's time to recharge. You stop seeing your boundaries as walls and start seeing them as doors. Ones you control, ones that open only for what aligns. The truth is, not everyone can handle your energy. That's not arrogance, it's reality. Because your energy is clarity, it's intensity, it's truth, and most people aren't used to that. They're used to people who bend, who adapt, who fit the mold. But when you own your energy, you stop molding yourself for rooms you've outgrown. You stop over-explaining your worth. You walk into spaces with your full self, unfiltered, unmuted, unbothered, and that kind of presence, it shifts things. It doesn't need to demand respect, it commands it. Quietly, powerfully, unapologetically, you'll notice your circle gets smaller, the noise gets quieter, but the connection gets deeper, with yourself, with the right people, with your purpose. Because owning your energy means you're no longer driven by reaction, but by alignment. You're not looking for external confirmation, you're listening to internal conviction. That is power, that is peace, and that is yours. Let me know if you'd like to continue with the next keynote, or if you'd like any of these adapted into performance style delivery. Mental toughness is built, not born, written with emotional depth and a professional, realistic voice without subheadings or conclusion. Mental toughness isn't something you're born with. It's not a personality trait or a lucky break. It's built, one decision at a time, through pressure, discomfort, and moments when giving up seems easier than standing firm. It's forged in silence, when no one is watching, when no one is cheering, when no one is coming to rescue you. It's not something that comes naturally. It's something you earn, you fight for it, you bleed for it, and once you've built it, no one can take it away from you. People often confuse mental toughness with being emotionless. But it's not about shutting down your feelings. It's about not letting them control you. It's not about never breaking down. It's about learning how to bend without snapping. It's about holding the line when fear is louder than reason. It's when everything in you is screaming to run, to quit, to disappear, and you still choose to stay, to breathe, to move, even if it's just 1 inch forward. That's mental toughness. It's not dramatic. It's not loud, it's quiet, it's internal, and it's powerful. The strongest people you meet, they weren't handed that strength. They were put through fires you didn't see. They've had doors slammed in their faces, hearts broken, plans fall apart. But they didn't crumble, or if they did, they rebuilt. Stronger, sharper, clearer, that's the difference. Not the absence of hardship, but the response to it. Life will test you. People will doubt you. Circumstances will stretch you, but mental toughness means choosing your response. Not everything deserves your panic. Not every moment deserves your surrender. You learn to be calm in the storm because you've trained for it. You've seen worse and survived. That kind of memory, that's fuel, but make no mistake. Mental toughness isn't built in comfort. It's built in chaos, in pressure, in repetition, in the early mornings when you don't want to get up, in the rejections that tempt you to stop believing, in the lonely nights where your only motivation is the voice in your head that says, keep going. You don't build mental strength by hoping things get easier. You build it by getting stronger. You stop waiting for ideal conditions. You stop needing motivation. You develop discipline. You develop grit. You show up when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That's where most people stop, when it gets uncomfortable. When the results don't come fast enough, when progress feels invisible, but those who are mentally tough, they stay, they show up without applause, they keep showing up even when the reward is delayed, even when the vision feels distant. Because mental toughness means understanding that progress is not always visible, but it's always happening, every rep, every decision, every challenge faced without quitting, that's where growth lives. And over time it compounds, you become unshakable, not because life gets easier, but because you've gotten stronger. And the thing is, mental toughness doesn't make you invincible. It makes you resilient. You'll still feel pain, you'll still get tired, but you'll know how to keep going with both. You'll know how to fall and rise, not once or twice, but every time. You'll know how to separate emotion from action. You'll know when to rest, but never to quit. That's the muscle you build, and it changes everything. How you lead, how you work, how you love, how you recover. Because you don't need perfect circumstances to be effective. You just need the mindset that nothing can break you without your permission. Every person who's ever achieved something meaningful had to develop mental toughness. Not one of them did it without struggle, without resistance, without doubt. But they built the mindset to push through anyway. They trained it, and if they could, so can you. It's not about being naturally strong. It's about being consistent. It's about making the hard choice, the right choice, over and over, until it becomes who you are. Until your response to adversity is not fear but focus, not panic but purpose, and once that switch flips, you stop being thrown by every setback, you stop being shaken by every storm, you know who you are. And more importantly, you know what you're capable of. Let me know if you'd like this adapted for a speech performance or visual presentation next. Commanding respect, not demanding it. Written in a grounded, emotionally resonant, and professional tone. Without subheadings or a conclusion, there's a difference between being loud and being heard. A difference between demanding respect and commanding it. And once you understand that difference, everything shifts. You stop trying to prove yourself and start embodying who you are. Respect that's demanded might come from fear or position, but respect that's commanded. That comes from presence, from consistency, from character. It doesn't need an announcement. It speaks for itself. People can sense authenticity. You don't have to tell them you're worthy of respect. Your actions will do that for you. It's how you carry yourself when no one is clapping. It's how you speak when there's nothing to gain. It's the way you treat people who can do nothing for you. That's where it starts. That's where it's built. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being real, being steady, being someone whose values don't shift depending on who's in the room. Respect isn't about titles or roles. It's not something you can buy, demand, or manipulate. True respect is earned, day by day, moment by moment, especially in how you handle pressure. When people watch you go through something hard and see that you didn't fold, didn't lash out, didn't betray your own principles, that's when the respect starts to grow. Because anyone can act powerful when things are easy, but it's who you are when things are not. That's what people remember. Commanding respect isn't about overpowering others. It's about self-control. It's when you don't let ego run the show, when you listen more than you speak, when you're firm without being cruel, confident without being arrogant, when you walk into a room and don't need to announce your value because it's felt. That's not something you perform. That's something you are, and people respond to it, even if they don't say it out loud. There's something undeniable about someone who knows who they are and doesn't need constant validation to prove it. You don't need to intimidate people to be respected. That's fear, not respect, and fear is cheap. It fades. It doesn't build loyalty. It builds distance. But when you earn respect the right way, people follow you because they trust you. Because you've shown them that your words and your actions line up, that your presence makes things better, not heavier, and that when you speak, it's with intention, not just volume. People often mistake dominance for leadership. But true leadership, real influence, doesn't come from barking orders. It comes from presence, from example, from being the one who sets the tone and keeps it steady, who can stand in a room full of chaos and still radiate calm, who can take a hit and still respond with grace. That's not weakness, that's power, and that's how respect is truly commanded. You teach people how to treat you not by what you say, but by what you allow, what you walk away from, and what you refuse to tolerate. If you have to keep asking for respect, maybe it's time to stop talking and start choosing. Start aligning with what mirrors your value. Start stepping away from what drains your worth. Respect starts with how you treat yourself. And if you're constantly explaining, justifying, or begging to be heard, maybe it's time to leave the room altogether, because your presence should never be a negotiation. There's strength in stillness. There's weight in quiet confidence. The person who doesn't chase approval but walks in their truth. That person shifts atmospheres without raising their voice. They don't need to command the spotlight, they become it. Because they've put in the work when no one was watching. They've done the hard things without applause, and that kind of internal power, it radiates, it speaks before you do. When people talk about you after you leave the room, what do they say? That's where true respect lives. Not in your performance, but in your presence. Not in your authority, but in your alignment. Do you live by what you say? Do you keep your word? Do you take accountability? Because respect is not about perfection. It's about integrity, and integrity doesn't shout, it shows up. It stays steady, and over time it builds something deeper than status. It builds legacy.